making full use of the EU's digital rules. I will start by giving the floor to Marilena Mafauna on behalf of the Council. She is the Deputy Minister for European Affairs. The floor is yours.
President, honorable members, Commissioner, I am profoundly honored to stand before the Parliament at the plenary right at the outset of the Cyprus presidency of the Council of the European Union, a presidency that is deeply committed to working closely, constructively, with transparency with the European Parliament, our co-legislator, in full respect of institutional propriety. Thank you for inviting the Council to participate in this timely and very important debate. Recent developments make this discussion urgent because AI deepfakes are spreading fast. Online sexual exploitation is increasing, and our children are particularly at risk. The Council believes that we must act decisively, and we must use the digital rules we have at our disposal. These include the Artificial Intelligence Act, the Digital Services Act, and the EU framework to fight the sexual abuse and exploitation of children. The AI Act is a powerful instrument that will undoubtedly help us address the dissemination of deepfakes. In particular, Article 50 of the AI Act sets out transparency obligations that apply to providers and deployers of certain AI systems, including those used to create deepfakes. The new rules reduce deception and impersonation by letting people know when they interact with AI and what content is AI generated. Moreover, providers of AI-generated or manipulated content, including deepfakes, will have to facilitate identification and marking of such content. However, we know that the AI Act alone will not be sufficient to tackle the problem of deepfakes. In this regard, strong enforcement of the Digital Services Act is equally important. Given their central role and the resources at their disposal, online service providers, and in particular social networks, have a particular responsibility. They must actively contribute to preventing the spread of illegal content. The Digital Services Act has put in place the strictest rules for the biggest players on the market, platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or X. These platforms must monitor how their services are used, and when illegal content appears, they must act quickly. When authorities or users report illegal content, they must respond without delay. If the platforms fail to comply, the relevant supervisory authorities, be it national authorities or the Commission, will take action. The Council is fully supportive of the Commission's supervisory action in this area. With regards to protection of our children online, the goal is full protection, online and offline. On the judicial side, the EU is updating its rules on child sexual abuse and exploitation. The directive is in trialogue stage, and during our presidency, negotiations with the European Parliament have resumed. This is a priority file for the Cyprus presidency, and our aim is to reach political agreement during our term. The text will update the definition of child sexual abuse material and will cover all types of realistic images, including AI-generated content, while ensuring that the instrument remains technology neutral. We also aim to make it an EU-wide criminal offense to produce, offer, possess, or distribute instructions. This is essential, as such material already circulates online. The text will also include new offenses, such as live-streamed abuse and online grooming. At the same time, we are pursuing our work with Parliament on the Child Sexual Abuse Regulation, aimed specifically at preventing and combating child sexual abuse online. While our aim is to make as much progress as possible, the full new framework will not be adopted in time. This is why we will need to extend the temporary derogation from e-privacy rules and allow online service providers to continue to voluntarily detect child sexual abuse material. The Commission has proposed a 2-year extension to the interim regime. It is now crucial that the Council and Parliament act in order to avoid a legal gap. Prior to concluding, I would also like to focus more generally on the protection of minors online, because, as I have mentioned, this is one of the priorities of the Cyprus presidency. We consider that Europe has a solid framework for the protection of minors in the digital world, but we can and must do more. In this context, we welcomed a number of initiatives from the Commission, such as the announcement of a dedicated expert panel on this matter, currently underway, the recently published guidelines to Article 28 of the Digital Services Act on protections of minors online, the publication on the age verification blueprint. In the past semester, the Council also held in-depth discussions with telecommunications ministers focusing on age verification and the protection of minors on social media. We will continue to lay the foundations for further work on the protections of minors online at the European level. You can count on the Cyprus presidency's full commitment in that regard. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. I pass the floor now to the Executive Vice President, Henna Virkkunen. Welcome.
Madam President, honourable members, Presidency, sharing on non-consensual intimate images and child sexual abuse material is horrendous. It's a violation of fundamental rights, including human dignity, privacy and children's rights. These horrible practices, they are not new, but what is new is the scale and the speed with which artificial intelligence is now amplifying them. With AI, anyone with very minimal technical expertise can create very realistic sexual images and videos of people without their consent. Once created, such material can be shared instantly online without the victim's knowledge or control, leading to non-consensual sexualization, gender-biased violence, and also harassment, psychological and reputational harm. And this harm is very real and personal. At the EU level, we can respond to such risks through our comprehensive digital rulebook, with platform governance, data protection, AI Act, and the criminal law. The Digital Services Act tackles the spread of AI-generated content on online platforms. It requires very large online platforms to identify assess and mitigate systematic risks linked to the amplification of illegal content and gender-based violence, including also non-consensual intimate images and child sexual abuse material. The platforms must assess the risks created by new features likely to pose systematic risks, such as generative AI, and to put in place mitigating measures. Recent instances, including the creation and dissemination of non-consensual sexual images of women and children on X through the AI tool Grok, are completely unacceptable. We take this matter very seriously in our enforcement work under the DSA. On December, we took the first non-compliance decision under DSA founding X in breach of 3 key provisions on data access, advertising transparency, and dark patterns, and based on this, levied a fine of 120 million euros. In addition, we have been monitoring very closely the developments on Grok. We have issued a request for information to X concerning Grok, and we have ordered the platform to retain all internal documents and data related to it until the end of this year. At the Commission, we have been very vocal about the fact that this feature is totally unacceptable and needs to be urgently removed. As a result, X has taken steps to limit the possibility of creating such content in the EU. We are now examining to what extent X may, in any case, be in violation of the DSA. And we will not hesitate to take further action if the evidence so suggests. Let me now turn to the AI Act. The AI Act plays a key role in tackling harmful AI-generated deepfakes. While enforcement of the AI Act is yet to begin in August in this year, it can already have an impact in different ways. First, the prohibition of harmful AI practices could be relevant for addressing non-consensual sexual deepfakes and child sexual abuse material. This depends on the type of harm they cause. And when deepfakes do not count as prohibited practices, transparency rules are also playing a role here. We are currently preparing a code of practice on marking and labeling of AI-generated content. The code is a voluntary tool for providers of generative AI systems to demonstrate compliance with the AI Act's obligations, also addressing the labeling of deepfakes. And moreover, the general-purpose AI models with systematic risk. The AI Act requires providers to assess and mitigate the systematic risks posed by their model. And this can include risks linked to the sharing of illegal, false, or discriminatory content. And in our criminal law, we have tools as well. The Child Sexual Abuse Directive makes the production and dissemination of child sexual material, including AI-generated material, a criminal offence. And the proposed child sexual abuse regulation requiring online service providers to prevent and combat the spread of child sexual abuse material is in the final stages of negotiations. And moreover, under the Directive of Combating Violence Against Women, Member States will have to ensure that the producing and sharing of sexually explicit deepfakes is punishable as a criminal offence. Lastly, our upcoming action plan against cyberbullying will improve also prevention, awareness and support measures to protect users from such emerging forms of online abuse. Let me underline that we will remain, and we are remaining fully committed to the effective implementation and enforcement of our rules to protect EU citizens, especially our children.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And now we come to the first round on behalf of the political groups, and I pass the floor to Jeroen Lenners. First, I would also like to remind you really to stick to the time, because we have to close at 10:30 in time for the presentation of the presidency. So please respect the time you have been given. Jeroen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam President, dear Commissioner, dear Presidency. Apps that undress or sexualize images are not innovation, their exploitation. Abuse, overwhelmingly directed against women and children, and they should never be legal. And the testimonies of victims are heartbreaking. Take the case of Olivia, abused as a child and rescued years ago. Yet in 2024, new images of her appeared, photorealistic AI creations trained on her original abuse material. For victims like Olivia, the abuse does not end when the crime ends. And Olivia is not an isolated case. This year alone, the Internet Watch Foundation identified almost 3,500 AI videos like that with child sexual abuse, compared with just 13 the year before. Each number represents a child whose suffering is being reproduced and normalized. And it's a small but inadequate step for platforms like Grok to restrict sexualized images of real people while still allowing fabricated abuse. AI-generated abuse is never harmless. It normalizes violence and increases real-world risks. And this Parliament has already called for stronger child online safety. Now we need action, an EU-wide ban on AI-generated child sexual abuse material and the systems that produce it. Platforms must put responsibility before profit. Safety must be built in by design, because taking material down after the abuse has taken place is simply not enough. Europe must lead. We cannot allow technology or those who profit from it to decide if and how our children are protected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we have already more demands for Catch the Eye than we can take, I will close the Catch the Eye now. So I now pass the floor to Alex Ajus Saliba on behalf of S&T.
Thank you, Chair. Images of our children are not safe, no longer safe on the internet. Can you imagine the images of your own children used to create abuse material on children? This is horrific, but it is a reality that several parents are facing around the EU. Women who are already facing a toxic environment, an online toxic environment, seeing their own images being abused to generate pornographic material. Let's be honest, this should not be allowed under EU rules, and Elon Musk should not continue acting without impunity. It's time to have rigorous enforcement of the EU digital rules so that we can undermine the intentions of oligarchs. European Commission has forced the investigation and has kept the safeguarding of these documents used by Grok. However, we need to make sure that these investigations lead to concrete results. This is not something that could be postponed so as to take action. We need to remember that it's important to safeguard strong legislation that we already have. We should not deregulate that could deregulate such rules which could undermine our women and our children. And therefore we should pay attention and take care of the rules that we decide on and the simplification that we take. Thank you.
Much. The next speaker is Virginie Geron on behalf of Patriots for Europe.
Merci, Madame Présidente.
Thank you very much, President. Colleagues, sexual images which are non-consensual, generated by AI, just like all forms of exploitation on the networks, and these are a scourge that affects women and girls. We need to condemn this fully. The platforms need to react to unacceptable content that is marked out to them. Grok and the social network X has been showing these bikini images, as shown in the study by eForensics. Now, this calls for a calm and proportional debate, not a hysterical reaction. There are some difficult users out there. Let's be clear, revenge porn and non-consensual sexual images are intolerable and have to be severely condemned and prosecuted. However, preventing uses of AI would be unacceptable. We've never banned photography and just because it's used for sexual purposes. So there's a lot of indignation and there's a lot of emotion linked to new technologies. But nevertheless, law has to remain consistent. We need to get the right balance. Platforms need to indicate when images are artificially created. Victims need to be protected, and law needs to be applied without hypocrisy or any excesses. Anyone who uses AI for harassment or sexual exploitation should be prosecuted. It's a question of individual responsibility and not banning a technology that should guide our action.
TR is Paolo Insalvini.
L'intelligenza artificiale.
AI, without any bioethics, is creating a new frontier of abuse. Fake images based on genuine images of innocent people and increasingly minors. At one click, you can generate sexual content, child pornography content, child sex abuse content with real, not fake, consequences. We're seeing a normalization of abuse and exploitation in our culture as a result of the ease of access to this. Of course, AI can be a positive instrument, but it has to be people-driven and guided by institutions. We need to have shared values and limits for our ethics too, not only for our legal provisions. So let's step back for a moment and look at the cultural model that we want to defend and stand up for. Do we want a society with no moral limits? Some people in this House may think so, but in that case, AI will be out of control. The only way we can proceed is ensure that our laws are inspired by our deep-set Christian values.
Hier ist Veronika Sifrova-Ostrihonjova für die Fraktion Renew.
Dear colleagues, when I entered politics, a deepfake video of me was shared online. It was my face plastered on a dancing body clad in a bikini, because how else would you try to hurt a starting female politician? It spread quite fast, and despite our efforts, it's still online. Well, I'm an adult. I'm equipped to deal with this, although I don't think I should be. However, imagine being a teenager at a time where public perception of you matters so much, and a half-naked video of a 12-year-old shared without her consent is shared online, and it is impossible to erase. Well, that is, or was, Grok at your service, my colleagues. So, to Mr. Musk and other tech bros, let's make it clear. Nudifying other people without their consent, mainly children, is never okay. You can choose to do business in a myriad of innovative ways, and yet you choose children in bikinis?
No, it's, please can someone check if the microphone on the rostrum is working?
Let's try, okay. All right, let's finish it up. So, to sum it up, this is not just one company's problem, though. We have to go further, and we have to concentrate on actually making it impossible. Hence, I think that nudifiers should not have a place in the European Union, and we should start working on that together now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on behalf of the Greens is Alexandra Gesel.
Put her on her back, spread her legs, put semen on her stomach. These words are not fit to be pronounced in this chamber. But these words are ruining the lives of women and children because Elon Musk built a tool that encourages men to do this on X. Where is the investigation to condemn this abominable and illegal behavior? Yesterday, the German press reported that the cabinet of the Commission president stopped the department of the Commission who had prepared that investigation that was ready to go. Shame on you, Madam President. And it's getting worse. This morning, the news broke of more cases of AI-generated child abuse images generated by Grok and still online. Doing nothing, you're aiding and abetting child abuse. This is a really dark moment. Fortunately, my heroes are here with us today. Josephine Ballon and Annalena von Hodenberg from the German organization Hate Aid are watching us today from the visitors gallery. They defend the victims of deep fake news and hateful speech. They are not afraid to speak out. They are not afraid to stand up to the tech bullies. And that is why they were sanctioned by President Trump. May the Commission President be inspired by your courage.
The next speaker is Ilaria Salis on behalf of the left.
Grazie.
Please respect the next speaker. Please.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. The internet is an incredible tool, but it can also be truly full of shit. With the arrival of artificial intelligence, we are now plumbing new depths, and it's very worrying. Recently, we've seen this very serious phenomenon. It's just disgusting. Images of thousands of people, mostly women, but also children, are being virtually undressed using Grok, X's integrated AI tool. Well, let's be clear, the responsibility is primarily that of the horrendous patriarchal mentality and sexism in the heads of millions of users. But including in a social network an AI that allows this kind of behavior is really fanning the flames. So the social networks are essential infrastructure for communication and for our lives. If you manage them, you have huge responsibilities. You need to show transparency and strong values, which clearly is lacking in the unscrupulous capitalists like Elon Musk and co. So what are we waiting for in Europe to free ourselves from these private American platforms and start to build social public networks? Technology and AI are not neutral. They should be governed democratically, under public control, and orientated by clear ethical principles.
To respect the time you have been given, the next speaker is Christina Andersen for 1 minute on behalf of ESN.
Thank you. AI-generated sexual deepfakes are vile. For the women and children targeted, the harm is permanent and real. They violate dignity, privacy, and basic decency. And they must be stopped, period. But let's be honest about the ritual we are performing here today. A new technology appears, it is abused, platforms have a problem. Parliament hyperventilates, especially when it comes with a familiar villain, and conveniently the villain is someone everyone already dislikes. Yes, Elon Musk runs X. Yes, Grok behaved irresponsibly. But some here seem almost relieved. Finally, a safe target for a perfectly choreographed outrage. But we do not need hysteria. We need enforcement. And criminal law must be enforced by the member states. When crimes are prosecuted, the crimes and behavior stops. So let's calm down, enforce the law, and protect the victims. I do have one request, though. Hey, Grok, please put the Commission out of office. Thank you.
The next speaker is Javier Sarsalejos.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Vice President, Madam Ambassador. The challenge, I think, is clear. We must prevent that AI becomes a child sexual abuse machine. In 2025, the International Internet Watch Foundation identified 3,440 AI videos of child sexual abuse compared to only 13 in 2024. So in terms of policy, we need an urgent action on the exploding spread of CSAM online, and that's why we are negotiating with the Council, the CSAM regulation. But let's be clear, there shouldn't be double talk on that. So our concerns must be matched by a meaningful and effective regulation. We also need a strong enforcement of existing safety rules, including DSA, to make sure that companies embed safety by design tools from the very beginning. And yes, we need to ensure also that the recast CSA directive criminalizes the use or possession of CSA image generators or material produced using such models. And we must consider seriously an independent testing of AI systems to ensure they cannot generate CSAM. Non-consensual sexualized content, whether real or AI generated, is exploitation and an act of violence that has to be confronted and fought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Birgit Zippel for 1 minute.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Well, AI, is that freedom through innovation? What we see, in fact, is innovation without responsibility and power without accountability. AI chatbots like Grok's chatbot are a systematic infringement of dignity and fundamental rights. They are being trained to undress pictures of real people, to sexualize them, to force them into poses that they never would have consented to. Women are being reduced to objects. Children are digital victims in the thousands. This is not an accident. It is the desired result of a culture that promotes growth for the few and puts it ahead of the interests of all of us. We should not accept dignity and rights being stamped all over, with women being sexualized and children being seen as collateral damage to a digital business model. So what we need is a clear ban on AI sexualization. We need a proper digital tax, personal liability for the providers, proper supervisory bodies, and temporary bans on access to the European market. We need to enforce rules that protect us here in Europe.
Speaker is Sebastian Kreuz.
Ja, dank voorzitter.
Thank you, President. The day before yesterday, it was hate speech. Yesterday, it was disinformation. Today, it's AI images on X, and tomorrow it'll be something else the left doesn't like. Every time, Brussels responds with new digital protections, and it's always too late. Every time they dream up something else, moral outrage, condemnation, but nothing is actually protected in reality apart from the lies and the censorship, which purports to make us safe. We need to be realistic here. This is not safety, this is not protection, it's power play. It's a debate about who is allowed to participate in discourse and who is not. It is not to do with extremists and paedophiles, it's to do with political opposition. Anybody who deviates from the left-wing narrative is to be condemned, is to be silenced. They're not allowed to react or respond to the debate. These are the rules, and these are the rules which govern open platforms, banning people from expressing their views freely, banning people in a way that is not in line with the Constitution, with principles. It's simply a digital dictatorship, and the PVV will never condone this. We are for the protection of people and their rights and their freedoms, and they may not be infringed in this way. Thank you.
Except blue. I have multiple blue cards, but as one is already asking for the floor on Catch the Eye, I take two. So the first is Renier van Lanschot.
Goedemorgen, meneer Kruijs.
Good morning, Mr. Kruijs. Digital dictatorship. All these tales that you are recounting about X and saying that this is all censorship being imposed on people, well, this is really quite far-fetched. The reality is that this is completely unconnected from reality. We have now an opportunity to establish rules, but you're simply referring to the politics of the Dutch rappers who say that people's suffering is not their fault. So the reality is that the European institutions need to close down the options for X and need to remove their own accounts on X. Would you like to tell me what conditions you would impose on this?
Staat hij aan? Ja, als de heer Van Lanschot zegt hier.
Thank you. Well, if the left is going to say that we can impose rules on this, well, what sort of rules on earth are you thinking about? I find this very alarming because your rules amount to your approach to Brussels and to national regulation, and you think that Brussels should be regulating everything on the basis that what is to be sanctioned offline can be sanctioned online in the same way. Thank you. A supplementary question. Well, that is, of course, completely not what we're about. We're talking about AI-generated deepfakes of minors. people whose lives will be changed and damaged forever by this behaviour. This is simply nothing to do with what you're saying, allowing the tech bros to get off scot-free and to use their platforms how they wish. What we need to have, if we have any platforms, they need to be safe. But we need to make sure that women and children and the whole of society can use social media safely. We need this in a more desperate way than we ever have. Reply. Thank you very much. Well, if you believe in the European project, this isn't part of it. You always go off the deep end in these sorts of debates. This is really not the point at all. The point is that people are always exploiting opportunities to seek to ban social media platforms. I would simply like to place greater trust in our own national legislation, our own national parliaments. We are proud of our history in the Netherlands, and we bring our proud history here from Den Haag and from Amsterdam. And so please let us continue to determine at home how we think the legislation should be crafted and implemented. Thank you.
Mr. Sieper, do you accept that too, Mr. Kroes? And then after that, I have to close. As I said, I can just take two because of the time. Please, Lucas.
Thank you, dear colleague. You said, and I quote you here, this debate is about everything that the left does not like, which then on the opposite, I think, means that you as a politician from the right like what this debate is about. So I have to ask the question, do you like AI-generated child pornography? Do you like pictures of women that were generated without their consent? And as you most likely will say no now to that question, follow-up question, do you think framing it that way in light of the actual topic of this debate is in accordance with the dignity of this House? Thank you very much.
Nou, meneer Sieper, toen hier iemand...
Mr. Sieper, when somebody in this House was exonerated from legal repercussions in Hungary, I didn't hear you talking in this way. So you can talk as you like about the powers of this Parliament and the way it is run. But the reality is that every single time a debate such as this on social media comes to this House, another reason is dreamt up for imposing further censure. People should be able to do what they want without censure. You can't go banning things in this way. And it is important that we don't place any more constraints on digital platforms. Thank you.
Dear colleague, once again, do you think that AI-generated child pornography en masse is just any other reason to regulate? And don't you think that child pornography generated en masse is not a good reason to update the system, to have new rules? And the same, of course, goes for pictures of women generated without their consent en masse. Is this not a reason to take action as a parliament in light of new technological developments? Or do you deny that?
Ja, nogmaals, dank voor de vraag. Ja, nee.
Thank you for the question. Well, of course I'm against it. The point is that there are bans in the Netherlands already. And I think this is an issue which should be dealt with in the Netherlands. If images are generated in the Netherlands, whether it's by AI or pornographic material of another sort, it is outlawed in the Netherlands. It is illegal. It should be dealt with in the Netherlands. I do not think that faceless bureaucrats should be pontificating to us about what we should be doing here in the European Parliament. This is the umpteenth time this has come up. It's about the news online, it's about images online. What will it be next? Thank you.
Von hier vorne den Hinweis geben.
Thank you. Could I just remind you that this Parliament is directly elected by the citizens of the European Union. It's not just some kind of self-styled Parliament. So I would like to remind you that we should respect its values and position.
Thank you. Online now, we're seeing things moving so fast that we can't tell what's true from what's fake anymore. And we're seeing a huge exponential increase in fake images. Many deep fakes include sexual content which are used to humiliate, undermine, damage the image and reputation of women, including minors. So we need to ensure that existing legislation is applied with a determination. But it's not enough, given this changing dynamic online. Within our criminal code in Italy, we now have illicit dissemination of deepfakes as an offence, dealing with new forms of online crime. We're seeing organic growth of this kind of crime, so we have to keep up with it. We have to keep up with it in EU law too. If we're combating illegal content and deepfakes, we're standing up for dignity, but also for our ethics in the online sphere. We need smart, targeted legislation that will allow for creativity and innovation from people, but not people rather than algorithms. And we need to ensure our legal framework allows.
Billy Kelleher.
When there was high fives in headquarters of X and Grok over the last number of weeks, celebrating the fact that they had so many hits because of the AI-generated deep fakes of sexually explicit material, it sends a very chilling message for me, as an elected public representative in this Parliament, and not a faceless bureaucrat or not a faceless tycoon who sits behind the paywall of X promoting such visual sexualised content. I find it deeply offensive that we're in a position here where we are now saying that protection of free speech requires us to allow Elon Musk and others with large social media platforms to promote child sexual abuse imagery. It simply doesn't make sense from any perspective to come into this chamber and say that Elon Musk is a defender of free speech. It was exploitation at its highest level, because this was fundamentally about making money out of sexual exploitation and increasing hits on Grok and X. And if you want to be sure of it, just look at what Elon Musk said when it was initially brought to his attention after Christmas. He put up a smiley emoji, dismissing child sexual abuse is a shameful thing, and unfortunately it's happening too regularly in this House as well.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Kim Gansbarentak.
Thank you. At only 14 years old, Roos became a victim of sextortion via Snapchat. A stranger had made fake naked images of her, and if she didn't pay, he threatened he would ruin her life. This type of deepfake technology is an enormous danger for the safety of everyone and especially harms women and young girls. Now with Grok integrated in social media and many other deep new tools topping search engine outcomes, committing a sexual crime is just 2 clicks away. How many women still have to find AI-driven deepfakes of themselves in the most disgusting, hateful graphic scenes, just to intimidate, humiliate, blackmail, or silence them? Last week, over 50 MEPs formed a broad coalition to support a ban on deep new technology. Today, I ask you again, Commissioner Virkkunen, will you ensure that women and children are safe in Europe, online and offline? Will you ban all AI that facilitates image-based sexual violence in Europe under Article 5 of the AI Act? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mario Furore.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. Today, you just need 1 click to steal someone's identity. Using a deep fake, artificial intelligence can create audio and video to spread it 1 million times and destroy life. Social networks continue to spread pornographic content and hate young people at the front line as victims, because what goes online doesn't stay online. It enters into their lives and changes them. In Europe, we've got rules, but we don't enforce them. They remain a dead letter. And the platforms pretend to scrutinize themselves and regulate themselves, but that's at the expense of the weakest in our society. Let's not leave the digital platforms in the hands of the digital oligarchs. Rather, we should defend our citizens and our rights. Real life and the digital world are not separate worlds. We need to be careful about what we say and what we post. We need to ensure that social media remain a democratic space with no space for hate speech, deep fakes and sexualised images. The Parliament needs to send out a clear message. We need to prioritise democracy over the digital giants.
Deepfakes und Kinderpornografie sind keine Spiele.
Deepfakes and child pornography are not a joke. They are brutal violence. They destroy reputation, the dignity, and often the entire life of the individual. The perpetrators must be brought to justice and victims must be protected. But what is the EU doing? It's simply taking this crime as a pretext to impose even more controls and constraints on public debate. The DSA is not a tool against criminality. It's simply an instrument of power. It pressurises platforms and it is simply creating far too much blocking, censorship and politically arbitrary decisions. We don't need controls on chats. We don't want mass surveillance. The principle of communication on the internet must be protected. There has to be a right to privacy. Genuine protection is something which can only be guaranteed by national governments. There should be national sanctions if necessary, and this must apply also to the internet. Thank you. Ms. Boskov, do you accept a blue card from Ms. Grappini?
Frau Grappini.
Ok. Stimată doamnă, v-ați contrazis în...
Madam, you've contradicted yourself there, because on the one hand, you're saying that we need to protect people against sexploitation and deep fakes, but then on the other hand, you say that the DSA is all about censorship. No, the whole point of it is protection. Are you trying to indicate that MEPs are kind of okay with sexploitation of young girls and manipulation of the population through fake news and so on? That's what people don't care about, but they just want DSA for censorship? Seriously?
Thank you. I didn't say that the DSA was always censorship, but I did say that proper victim protection is taking place at national level. We need to use this in a consistent way, and if we do that, we don't need European constraints and restrictions on freedom of expression. It's just a further pretext to constrain freedom of expression. Thank you.
Sorel.
Chers collègues.
Dear colleagues, AI-generated sexual deepfakes are organised violence. Clicks are turned into profits. Nudifying people and humiliating them is not an isolated form of abuse. It is a lucrative market based on an attack on human dignity which thrives on being anonymous and going viral. We have tools to sanction platforms, but this will remain insufficient as long as we do not address the central issue, that of impunity. We have a choice here. Are we going to protect victims or protect impunity? Freedom of expression does not mean you have the right to cause harm with no consequences for you. Dear colleagues, we must lift anonymity on social media. That's what will massively reduce toxic behaviour, hate messages and harassment. And it will also hit the platforms in the pocket. It's better than sanctions. On the other hand, we must refuse and reject the scanning of private messages, the weakening of encryption, and the violation of the confidentiality of communications, as this constitutes an unacceptable attack on freedom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Weil wir schon über der Zeit sind, werde ich...
Thank you. We're already running a bit late, and therefore I'm going to have to close the blue card system now. So please, can I also appeal to you, colleagues, to stick to your speaking time. 1.5 minutes for Ms. Kokolari.
Dear colleagues, we're having this debate because the chatbot Grok on X has allowed users to create AI-generated sexual images of women without their consent, including the Vice Prime Minister of my country, Sweden. There were even reports of minors being sexualized. This is clearly illegal. Sexualized content without consent whether it's real or AI generated, is exploitation and an act of violence. And we have actually laws for this in Europe, and we should not be afraid to use our laws. If the online platforms don't put safeguards in place, we should hold them accountable. The images may be fake, but the damage is real. And let me be clear here. Sexual images without consent is not innovation, is an act of violence, it's unacceptable, and it must be stopped now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Christel Schaldemose.
Tusind tak. Thank you. I've used Grok, and I think Grok and AI actually can work. They can fact check. But Grok has also been used to create sexual images. That's not innovation or freedom of speech. That is a digital assault. And the EU has the rules already. We have our rule book, and we need to use them now. DSA, GDPR, we need to enforce the rules so this doesn't happen. Analysis have shown that more than half of the images created on Grok are people not really dressed, and large part of them are women. Musk say that this is fascist censorship when we want to treat this. I just think it's normal protection of women and children. It's not about the technology, it's about dignity and putting people above profit, which is why we need to enforce. Thank you.
Here is Mathilde Androuet.
Les deepfakes et l'exploitation sexuelle.
Deepfakes and online sexual exploitation are crimes. A fake video can even cause a young person to commit suicide. It is so destructive of their lives. And this is something which has got to be regulated. The platforms can't hide behind the facade of neutrality. They have the means to act, and they must do so. They need to do detection. They need to flag up problematic content. They need to take the requisite measures, and they need to deal with illegal content. Politics and justice has also got to think in terms of real deterrence. We've got 20,000 prostitutes who are minors who are exposed to the internet and social media. And when paedophiles get embroiled in these networks, everybody knows who they are, but they're never brought to account. They're never stopped. And all too often, it's victims who are children who bear the brunt of this, who suffer the most, and they simply end up being ruthlessly exploited in far too many different ways. We need to have enforcement. We don't need new rules. We need enforcement of the rules that we have. We have rules which should be able to protect minors without muzzling freedom of expression. Technology mustn't become a weapon against Europeans, but rather a support for the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Musimy nazwać rzeczy po imieniu.
We need to call things what they are. Sexual deepfakes are a form of violence. Generating naked pictures without consent are to blackmail people and to take away their dignity. This is digital violence, and perpetrators must be brought to justice, and internet platforms should immediately block such content and cooperate with relevant authorities. I think that in this chamber we have an agreement on that. But one thing should be borne in mind. When talking about safety on internet, some people want to go one step further. That is, to use DSA provisions for fighting certain ideas or outlooks. That's the problem in this room. We should focus on what's more important, on fighting what is bad, and not focusing our attention on criticizing or blocking political views on the internet. We should fight against violence, but also defend the freedom of speech. Thank you.
So many colleagues shared example today how AI is used to harm women.
But I still believe in AI making our lives better, making our workdays easier, or help us live healthier lives. But instead, there are too many people choosing AI to humiliate women, to undress women without their consent, to create pornographic deepfakes, to sexualize, to harm, and to silence female public voices like politicians, journalists, or attack their colleagues, their neighbors, or ex-partners. Let me be clear. AI is just a tool. The real perpetrators are behind the screen, and most of the time they are men. And yet creating new deepfakes is hardly ever punished. So women live in fear, and we will change that. Women should not be afraid. It should be the perpetrators that need to be afraid. We will not accept technology being used to roll back decades and centuries of female empowerment, because our digital rules in Europe are worth nothing if we don't seriously enforce them. Because AI will only be beneficial to all if we defend all our citizens' rights.
Vielen Dank. Der nächste Redner ist Sergej Lagodinsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lagodinsky.
Yes, yes, colleague Hahn, AI is just a tool, but hell, it's a powerful one. And what is happening now, what we're experiencing, is precisely what we have been warning about. What we are experiencing is precisely why we fought for a powerful AI Act, for DSA, for DMA. We have the instruments. We need leadership. We need vision, and we need enforcement. And it is not about reviewing and revising. It's about action. Last week, Ms. Vice President, I asked you, what do we do with such generative AIs? It's not about marking fakes or marking deep fakes. It's about how to treat generative AI under AI Act in such cases, whether we designate them a core platform service under DMA. What is the status of generative AI under DSA? These are questions, these are uncomfortable questions, but hell, uncomfortable questions are being put by those who are sanctioned, and they are courageous enough. So let's be as courageous as they are to ask those questions and to answer them.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Elena Kontura.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Madam Commissioner. The uncontrolled malicious use of AI through deepfakes in digital platforms constitutes a severe violation of fundamental rights and a threat for the victims that are overwhelmingly women and underage children. And it should not be allowed to undress women and minors in member states of the EU. And it's not possible to allow companies make profits by offending human dignity. Therefore, you have to answer why, up to now, there hasn't been any procedure of sanctioning these platforms that violate EU legislation. What are you waiting for? If there is any lacuna, you should propose the revision of the AI Act and the DSA Act, and to reactivate the legislative framework in order to prohibit such systems of AI and to avoid such similar episodes in the future. Thank you very much.
Az EU képtelen arra, hogy a törvényekbe
The European Union is incapable of forcing large companies to comply with the law. What do instead? Act as a super censor in Brussels. And the Commission is aggressively attacking the X platform, which takes freedom of expression seriously. But it has nothing to say about Facebook and Google, who operate unrestrained liberal censorship. They systematically and arbitrarily delete the pages of right-wing politicians, for example, the president of the Our Homeland movement, or right-wing media outlets, and they commit serious violations of the law. It is frightening how they conflate illegal content with content deemed harmful by the liberal mainstream. This is a direct path to political censorship. Are you going to decide what disinformation is? These are dark times. You are concerned about the sexualization of children, but at the same time you punish and sue Hungary for not allowing sexual content into schools that is promoted by the Rainbow Lobby. The emperor has no clothes. What you really want is a dictatorship of opinion, not protecting the victims.
Honor Mileti.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Commissioner, Minister. Millions of women, we have seen ourselves naked on the internet without even undressing ourselves and without even being able to bring down and remove this material from the internet, amongst them myself. Simple photos from the Instagram clothes, everyday photos were stripped bare with a single click by algorithms without any permission, without consent, without shame, without consequences. This is not a side effect of technology. It's sexual exploitation. It's digital rape. And deepfakes target women, those who are exposed, those who speak up, those who are being envied. But let's stop the fairy tale. This is not the fault of digital rules. The European Union has digital rules, but do platforms apply them? No. An algorithm cannot have more rights than the human body. So either we enforce immediate removal of illegal deepfake material and impose sanctions, or demand full accountability and admit that our digital future in women's bodies are not expendable. Thank you.
Already over time.
Oggi sono indignato.
I am outraged and furious today. We're seeing violence against minors and sexual abuse, but you get this sovereignty-obsessed right saying we shouldn't be applying the rules and punishing those who commit this kind of abuse. That's not standing up for freedom of speech. It's crazy. We've got platforms, and Grok is not the only one, that allow for instant nudification of girls and other children. 12,000 CSAM images, higher than ever. AI assisted. We need to apply the existing rules through the DSA and the AI Act. We need to eradicate this phenomenon. We don't need mass surveillance techniques. We just need to apply online rules more stringently to protect women and children now.
Fabrice Leggeri.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner, sexual deepfakes and exploitation of minors on the internet or on platforms are absolutely criminal. They are often taking place in silence, and the platforms are not reacting rapidly enough. The European Union's response is to expand the number of rules. The DSA, it is said, is not enough because criminal content can remain online. Sanctions are too late and perpetrators get off scot-free. The truth is simple. The protection of the victims is essential, and it can't be done through technocracy or through self-regulation. It is the member states, criminal law in the member states, identified accountable magistrates, forces of law and order who are capable of creating a deterrent effect that we need. We in Europe should not be censoring opinion. We should be allowing the full respect of national authorities and national powers to intervene. It's only the national public authorities that are actually in a position to guarantee the necessary protection, dignity and justice. Thank you.
Is Tim Green.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Well, if AI pictures being used abusively, that's absolutely unacceptable. But to ban the whole technology or the whole platform is the wrong route to take. We see this as a chance to ban platforms we don't like. And we talk about protection. No, it's not about that. It's about power and control over free discourse. Uncomfortable opinions are always called a threat to democracy. But the real threat is censorship. Freedom of expression is the basic pillar of democracy. But platforms actually give citizens a voice a chance to debate and to generate things. Well, let's be clear. We should be limiting crime, we should be protecting women and children, but we should not be sacrificing the internet as a whole. That doesn't defend democracy, it weakens it.
Speaker Sandro Gosi.
Merci. Chers collègues, vous avez...
Dear colleagues, you've all given very good examples, colleagues, about what has been happening online. But I've got another example. Go to Grok, take a photo of a well-known person such as Anne Frank, nudify the image, add a swastika to the image. Pretty disgusting, isn't it? But you can do it. You can do it on Grok. It's been done. Sexual deepfakes are not a technological accident. They are not freedom of expression. This is a systematic circumvention of DSA moderation rules. It's not about being shocked or feeling outraged. It's about protecting citizens, especially women and children. It's about detection, blocking, rapid intervention to take down content. We need to ensure there is victim protection. These rules are in the DSA. We just need to apply them rapidly and in full.
Marketa Gregorova.
Imagine waking up to discover your body stripped and shared online for the pleasure of strangers. Imagine it is your 12-year-old daughter who wakes up to her AI-generated nude, displayed for the whole vast world to see. No consent, no dignity, just violence. This is what men do through Musk's tool Grok to children and women. This tool should have never existed. But instead of removing it or even pausing it, Elon Musk chose to monetize it by locking it behind a paywall. And to make it worse, he made fun of the victims by posting a picture of himself in a bikini. What a disgrace. That's why I am calling on the Commission and users and advertisers to join me in boycotting X. The platform has become a space dominated by extremism, violence, and far-right propaganda. Europe must build its own alternatives. The EU is already a leader in digital rights. Now let's turn it into a competitive advantage. Thank you.
The next speaker is Kathleen Funchen.
Across Europe, we all know women do not feel safe. Many are afraid to walk alone at night, and too many do not feel safe even in their own homes. Now, women and children are being targeted in a new way, through unregulated AI, which is being used to create fake sexual and abusive images of women and children. The platforms know that this is happening, yet they continue to turn a blind eye. If this abuse is visible on platforms like X, we can only imagine how much worse it is on hidden networks and the dark web. And the irony of this situation is that those who profit most from this exploitation are often the very same people who spread misinformation and fear, all in the name of protecting women and children. We need to see strong, up-to-date laws and real enforcement. AI tools that harm our communities must be stopped, and we have a responsibility to ensure this happens. We all deserve safety and dignity and to live lives free from exploitation, both online and offline. Garmagat.
Thank you. The next speaker is Pablo Arias Echeverria.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, President, Commission, Vice President. Generative AI models are trained on user data. They generate traffic on social media. That's what Grok and X do. It's absolutely vital for them to win against the competition in social media. And now we're seeing a kind of cesspool where they're acting with complete impunity. The platforms just want to generate traffic. And anything controversial, anything provoking a reaction is good because it generates clicks. And now we see intimate images generated by Grok. X is a chatbot. It could be comical if it wasn't so tragic for the victims. the whole point is that by generating outrage, they're also generating clicks. We need digital education and training from an early age, responsible use of such platforms, because it's generating traffic now, but it's irreversible.
What a mad world we live in, with AI tools like Grok AI creating fake naked images with public materials. Well, these are non-consensual, sexualized images spreading in an uncontrolled manner on the internet. People are being affected, including politicians, but mostly women and children across the EU. You have to think about the people who want to hurt others and the mass spreading of these images. It's the tech oligarchs like Musk and Zuckerberg that are earning billions on deepfakes on their platforms. The only thing that can stop that is clear and coercive legislation. So if you listen to the EPP group and the Swedish moderates and Christian Democrats, all they want is deregulation, or what they call simplification. That's what they want to see in the digital world. It's just absolutely incomprehensible. Let's protect Europe's women and children and girls, not just the tech oligarchs.
Sara Magnoni.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. It's not just deep fakes that are a cause of such alarm, it's also the speed with which they spread and the people, the most vulnerable, they affect. Over recent years, there's been an exponential increase of these images, millions of them every year. This is extremely worrying, but even more worrying is the impact on young people. 98% of this imagery is sexualized and affects young people. They are so adversely affected by such manipulated images. In 2025 in Cosenza, some 20 images of young people were posted, and this is really symptomatic, emblematic of a global epidemic. We need to respond. We need a responsible approach. We need to make accountability for the platforms de rigueur, and we need to provide protection for the minors. We need to ensure that we are giving protection, that we are eradicating abuse, that we are protecting and not destroying. Europe is here to protect people, not algorithms. Thank you.
Speaker is Stéphanie Joncourtin.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Commissaire.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. If, as a woman, you send a picture of yourself or one of your children on X or anywhere else, you can be nudified and exposed to thousands of people without your consent. What Elon Musk has allowed is nudified images of women, sexualized images of children to be public. It's not a bug, it's a business model. They want to make money and generate a buzz. Simone Weil, who's of course known here, spoke out about the kind of combats that we have to take, and it's the same thing online now. We have to combat the platforms which are sexualizing images, faking images. Sexual deepfakes are not just images. It is online violence. The content is child pornography. We have a law, DSA, Thierry Breton knew this, investigation, sanction, and if necessary, suspension of Grok. There should be no grey area there, even for Elon.
Agir ne suffit pas, il faut agir.
Please. The next speaker is Paolo Cunha.
Madam President, Commissioner, when we're talking about deepfakes, we're not just talking about technology or digital rules. We're talking about violence. What we're talking about is women and children whose images are being stolen without their consent, that are being put through tools that allow humiliation and abuse. This is not a virtual phenomenon, it is violence. Sexualized deepfakes should be treated as a crime. The fact that these images are generated by artificial intelligence does not reduce the seriousness of the act or the suffering caused. Quite the contrary. This is a persistent problem which is difficult to eliminate. Digital platforms should not amplify these illegal contents, and they should not hide behind some false sense of neutrality. The industry has to take responsibility. The European Union today has clear rules for combating these abuses. What's at stake is not a lack of a legal framework, but its actual enforcement. What we hope to see from the Council and Commission is a clear answer that's effective.
Peut-on accepter aujourd'hui que des services...
Can we accept en masse AI production of child pornography with unprecedented violence? AI images were circulated on Grok through X, and we're seeing this become a day-to-day event. It is a commodification of horror. Crime is a business like any other. And what can I say about the hypocrisy of the far right on this? Jordan Bardella and the far right, only a few months ago, were calling for Elon Musk to be given the Sakharov Prize for human rights. Are they thinking about children and women in Europe? The far right says it's patriotic, defends technological sovereignty, and uses US companies to run campaigns in Paris. So what is it doing apart from bending the knee before idols such as Musk and the MAGA movement that is creating an entire movement that has brought you to your knees, and we all need to stand up for that.
The next speaker is Dora David.
Elfogadhatatlan.
Thank you. It is unacceptable that non-consensual, sexualized, AI-generated content about women and children is spread on social media. There was such an outrage that X blocked the feature that strips real people naked. But then, what about the sexualization of AI-generated images about children? These must be banned in all cases, whether they are AI-generated or not. Platforms must take action against the spread of all illegal content. For example, in Hungary, it is illegal to defame someone with fake audio or video recordings. Therefore, it is also illegal that Fidesz uses deepfake videos to put words in the mouth of the opposition leader that he actually never said. This false content, and we have a court ruling that says this is false, this false content is often advertised illegally and spread by fake profiles, and this jeopardizes the integrity of Hungarian elections. The Hungarian people expect platforms to comply with the law and authorities to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Is Mark Angel.
President, we were even surprised when we learned that the AI tool Grok of Elon Musk allowed generating women's and minors' nude and sexualized material. And Elon Musk's response was also emblematic for big tech. He said he wasn't aware of this and that people making these images are to blame. Musk failed once again to show a modicum of human decency. That's big tech for you. All money, no responsibility. And that is not the European way. We need strong rules in the digital world and must make companies responsible. And first, the Commission must step up the enforcement of its current rules. Enforcement has been too slow, too timid, and too cautious. Corporations need to finally feel the full force of our legislative arsenal and be sanctioned when they violate our rules. And secondly, weakening our digital rules could further embolden platforms and undermine people's protection and fundamental rights. We therefore urge the Commission to reconsider its approach on deregulating our digital rule set. And finally, as Socialists and Democrats, we hope that we can all support additional protections of consumers and minors online in the upcoming Digital Fairness Act. The Grok case shows once again that our work is not yet done.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Miroslav Nikiel.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, the use of deepfakes and disinformation is a major threat to the stability and security of Europe as a whole. Our opponents want to damage trust in democratic institutions. They want to divide societies and weaken European unity. They use subtle tactics adjusted to attack weak spots in every society. They're difficult to counter. Our enemies not only interfere with our election processes and depreciate democracy, but use methods to fight against us as citizens, in particular children and women. What we are seeing is only the beginning. It's not a one-off. It's a long-term strategic threat to our security. That's why myself and my political group, we are deeply convinced, involved in a coordinated European response to this threat. We are working on protecting our electoral integrity, our democracy, and first of all, on protecting citizens, women and children. Thank you.
As I already said at the beginning of the debate, we have to stop in time, and that's the reason why I just can take 5 for Catch the Eye. And the first who gets Catch the Eye is Nikolina Brnjak. And please stick to the minute, because really we have to stop in time.
Poštovana predsjedavajuća, povjerenice, danas umjetna inteligencija...
Commissioner, artificial intelligence brings many opportunities, but there are risks, especially when it comes to deep fake. There is a possibility to blackmail people. The problem is because the implementation is not uniform. Platforms should take away all the illegal content. This should be done in a proper way, and minors should be protected. But this comes also with the real protection of victims and application of law. Thank you.
Juan Fernando López Aguilar. Sorry for that.
Danke, Frau Präsidentin. Vicepresidenta Virkkunen.
Thank you, Vice President Virkkunen. We've heard many times here in this debate that sexual violence against women and children and sexual deepfakes have become a business model for platforms. The far right thinks it's a business model, but we've actually approved laws within this Parliament on, for instance, in the DSA and the AI Act, that what is a crime offline should be a crime online as well. It goes further than that, too. We need to ensure that the Commission is effectively applying EU legislation to these oligarchs, to this business model of online platforms. We also need to make it clear that we're not going to give in to any blackmail from platforms supported by the White House, nor should we have an omnibus rowing back on these standards. We're talking about fundamental rights that need protecting. We're talking about women and children being exposed to this horrific sexploitation and abuse.
Tinkinen, 1 minute.
Arvoisa puhemies, komissio on ottanut jälleen näkyvästi hampaisiinsa Elon Musk.
Thank you. Once again, the Commission is attacking Elon Musk and X. More specifically, it is claiming that X and Grok are creating images of people who are scantily clad at best. It is a good thing for us to be taking X to task and to be calling for changes. But if there are images suggesting that Musk is X, then does the Commission not need to stop and think that ChatGPT could also create these images? If you focus on only one single platform, which has also been targeted on numerous occasions in the past, this is surely open to question more widely. The Commission has powerful tools, but it should be targeting them correctly, and it should also be putting its own house in order before it investigates others. Thank you.
Is Raquel García Hermida van der Walle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. We have heard many good things today, but I think that we still have heard a little too little about the enforcement and why it's taking us so long, why it's taking the Commission so long sometimes to publish investigations, to come up with fines, to enforce the rules that we already have in place. And I wonder, Might this be something to do with the threats that we're getting from some tech oligarchs in the United States and their protector in the White House, as it has been said in this room today? And I think that there are a lot of Europeans who are looking at us on this day, this week of all weeks, as the week of truth. And what are we going to do as European Parliament to break our tech dependency in the United States and claim our not only digital but general sovereignty? I think this is the moment of truth, and I call on the Commission to take action swiftly on this domain and also other policy fields. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The last speaker under Catch the Eye is Katrin Langensieben.
Ja, die Würde des Menschen.
Human dignity should not be infringed. That's a basic rule that we've all agreed upon after the Second World War. That women's rights are not respected, that they're being humiliated, exploited, that this is a business model to make money out of their bodies. Well, consumers, and particularly female consumers, need to fight for their protection. That's nothing new. It's not just against Elon Musk. It's against a group of men who have decided that those who stand up for the rule of law and freedoms are going to be exposed to attacks, and they're going to generate money and power. It's their fear of losing this power that we see every single day. When we see the actions of Mr. Trump, Mr. Putin, it's all about the rule of law. Female consumers need to be protected. That's the Commission's task. So please do your job. Thank you.
I pass the floor to the Commission for 2 minutes, please, short, because the next agenda point is already waiting.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, honourable members, Presidency. I want to thank everybody for your very important contributions, and I share your concerns. We need to work together further to ensure that in the age of AI, the EU remains a safe and secure place, especially for our children. The spread of non-consensual intimate images and sexualized deepfakes reminds us that new technologies, they come with new forms of risks that demand swift action and effective legal protection. Sexualized deepfakes are not a marginal or abstract problem. We know that they are a very serious form of digital violence. We need to coordinated and very strong enforcement of our existing rules across different platforms, providers and deployers of AI systems and general-purpose AI models. Like I said, I see that we have very strong legal toolbox, and now our responsibility is to apply it fully in line with our fundamental values. But also, we will carefully assess your proposals to make it more legally certain the unacceptable nature of these practices, and also we will consider whether explicit prohibitions are needed also in the AI Act.
Thank you very much. Now I pass the floor to the Council representative, Deputy Minister. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your vital contributions on this crucial matter. President, honourable members, Vice President Virkkunen, in a context of a rapidly shifting world and new technologies that have given rise to new forms of harm and manifestations of violence, such as deepfakes, I would like to conclude by recalling the duty of each institution of the European Union and of each member state to effectively protect our citizens, especially the most vulnerable, our children, our fundamental values, including in the digital sphere, against this gruesome phenomena. A number of you have aptly and appropriately noted that violence, whether online or offline, continues to affect women disproportionately, and this reality must be fully reflected in our policies and in our actions. That is why, as Council Presidency, we will advance the forthcoming European strategy for gender equality and addressing persistent challenges, including gender-based violence in all its forms. We will also be focusing on combating cyber violence against girls aged 13 to 18. It requires continuous and coordinated efforts to ensure that our rules and our legal toolbox are effectively implemented and that our values and our democratic standards shape the European digital space. We must also work closely with digital platforms which have a decisive role and a special responsibility, but also with our partners globally. I can assure you yet again of the Council's full commitment to preserving and defending our values. Thank you for your attention.
Vielen Dank, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. That concludes this debate. We'll just have a very brief suspension and then we'll continue. This will be Council and Commission statements on the presentation of the programme of activities of the Cyprus presidency. So session will resume shortly.